So, yeah, this,
Okay. Okay, let's. Yeah. Okay, some announcements. First of all, we had a very good initial response to the Sunday barbecue. So, soon as, once there's something out in the next couple of days.
Morning, Yoshua.
Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning.
Some learning announcements. Year of Learning, sponsored by Julian Tavares Kagan to commemorate the Yahrzeit of Julian's father, his Ben Muttel, and a month of learning sponsored by Waterwoods and Haskell families to commemorate the Yahrzeit of Mr. Leon Waterwoods, Haskell, Aryeh, Ben, Naphtali.
Okay, good morning, everybody. The topic that I want to talk about this morning is not just limited to doctors. When we talk about confidentiality, it's basically what are the halakhic concerns about any individual who has information about another individual, good, bad, or otherwise. What parameters are there for sharing that information? Impact it might have on other people or on the individual himself. The initial discussion concerns doctors and patient privacy. To what extent can you reveal information? But it applies to many other people, especially rabbis, for example. Rabbis have a tremendous amount of knowledge, of information, of what's going on in the community. And it's on the one hand, it's a tremendous burden. I can tell you personal experience, tremendous burden to know so much about so many people, detail. In some cases, very personal situations, life and death situations, but it also applies to other individuals, school principals as well. Anybody who deals with people, even in business. If you are in business and you've had a customer for many, many years who all of a sudden has come upon difficult times and can't pay his bills, that's information that should not be shared necessarily with anybody else. It's between you and the individual. To what extent is a person in violation of any serious halachos if he shares information about another individual? So it can apply to anybody, not just doctors or rabbis. I remember I had a dentist who was going through a terrible divorce. And whenever I was in the dental chair, obviously I couldn't respond. My mouth was open. He had all kinds of stuff in there. And he's telling me all about the horrible things that his wife does. And then at the same time, his wife comes to see me on a different issue, and then she starts telling me about the husband. And I'm caught in between. And unfortunately, it's the kid who suffers. But there are many individuals who have information about other people. And in terms of doctors, unlike other individuals who have information, they are sworn by the Hippocratic Oath. They take an oath when they become a doctor, and they shall keep to themselves that which I may see or hear in the course of treatment. That's part of the Hippocratic Oath that every doctor has to take to swear to. Clearly, it's at the base of any type of doctor-patient relationship. If I'm going to share stuff, or my doctor knows things about me, I trust the doctor that he's not going to share that with anybody else, because that would be a violation of the trust that between them. But aside from the trust between the physician and the patient, or the rabbi and the congregant, or the principal or the teacher, in addition to that, there are halachic considerations. I mean, the public law since 2003, you have what they call the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, what we call HIPAA, where you can't reveal certain information. There are certain standards to protect that information. But halachically, it falls under the category of basically a subcategory of Lashon Hara. There are psukim in the Torah, there are Gemaras that simply say that you don't share information with other people about a third party. That is inappropriate. Confidences have to be respected by professionals, but even aside from those with whom you have a fiduciary responsibility or any other kind of business relationship, gossip is prohibited. There are psukim in Vayikra and in Mishlei and in Tehillim. You can't divulge confidential information, period. You can't talk about another person, period. There's a very clear directives in the halacha. Even a dayan or a bezdin. There's a case in the Gemara in Sanhedrin where 22 years after a case had been adjudicated, one of the judges revealed some of the inner workings of the Sanhedrin, and he was kicked out of the Sanhedrin because of that. You don't reveal things that go on in private. Attorneys, you have what they call attorney-client privilege. But aside from the legalities, there are halakhic strictures as well. However, and this is the slippery slope. If the maintenance of certain confidential information can be harmful to somebody else, you might be allowed to reveal that information. And this opens up a whole Pandora's box of problematic information. There are specific medical situations, for example. If a person, let's say, is contagious, it's important that the authorities know that, or individuals know that this person is contagious and it could be very, very dangerous to other people. Under those circumstances, limited information can be shared because you can't cause harm. That's also part of the Hippocratic Oath. The first thing a doctor has to swear to is do no harm. So if information can harm other people, you want to ask a Shiloh, can you ask a Shiloh about it? But there are a number of poskim that deal with this issue. For example, if you have a person that has a sexually transmitted disease, the wife has to know about it because that could be problematic otherwise. If a person has a contagious disease of another type, what about a doctor whose patient has epilepsy and the guy is still driving? Should the doctor notify the Motor Vehicle Bureau that this guy should not be driving? That's private information, but it could cause serious damage to other people. There are other similar cases that the poskim have dealt with in terms of sharing what would otherwise be private information. It also involves in business as well, in certain cases. It also goes to another situation. Let's assume, and I'll get to your question in a moment. I have been asked many times to write letters of reference for individuals. And most of the time, I had no problem because these are good people and I endorsed their application to whatever position they were applying for. But what if somebody I know is really not good for that position? Can I lie? Obviously not. Can I only talk about his or her positive features and leave off the negative? And that's a responsibility that you have. I had a teacher who was not a great teacher, had very poor classroom control, didn't always prepare. He was an average teacher, nothing great. And the teacher was applying for another job somewhere else in another school. They were moving away, whatever. And the teacher asked me to write a letter of recommendation. If I write a letter saying the teacher was always on time, that type of thing, but that would be unfair. I'm giving a recommendation to somebody who didn't necessarily deserve any type of praise to help me get a position. And then I'll get a call back from the person that hired him. Why didn't you tell me that so-and-so was a lousy teacher or couldn't control a class? So there are times when I have to say, I'm sorry, I really don't think I can write the letter of recommendation. You have to be honest with people. Otherwise, it falls back on you. So there are many situations where, not just for doctors or attorneys, but other people in other jobs. If you are writing a letter of recommendation to somebody that really doesn't deserve it, that's a problem. You don't want to say bad things about somebody, so better say nothing. Question.
Similar to what you're saying, when it comes to shadchanas, when someone asks you something about somebody.
Okay, so shadchan, there too, and I'll get to the Chafetz Chaim in a moment. But basically, in terms of shadchanas, if you know about something about a person that is would, as I say, shter the shidduch, and that the Chafetz Chaim deals with this, and in terms of medical information about somebody, and doctors have the same. If you have a situation of a person, for example, if a young man is sterile, cannot have children, and he got engaged to a young woman, and she doesn't know about this, is it appropriate for the physician to inform somebody that, listen, be aware that you're not going to have any children in this marriage? Is that appropriate? That's a serious issue. And you have all the time, when people ask about somebody for a prospective chassan or kala, and the person might have some mental issues, the person might have psychological problems or medical issues, it's important, halachically, that this does not fall into the category of lashon hara, because there are serious dangers involved in not revealing that information. And we've seen too many cases where people were asked about prospective bride or groom, and they knew there were issues, and they did not reveal it, and it caused terrible problem later on. A divorce, happened like a week after the wedding sometimes. If the chassan agrees, if the chassan doesn't want to agree, then you have another problem of aguna, which is a whole separate issue. But clearly, in the case of shadchanos, you have to be honest. Because again, it's not lashon hara if you are preventing a horrible situation from occurring. If stop lashon hara, you can't talk about.
Wally,
Yes.
what about someone like Jackie Mason, for example? That's the way he makes his living, and he's telling jokes, and everybody understands that.
So what
Humor. If he's making humor, but he mentioned someone's name.
Oh, well, he definitely should not mention somebody's name. And as a rabbi's son, he should know better.
But everybody knows it's humor.
Yeah, but still, there's always a kernel of truth in humor too.
That's true.
And that's what makes it humorous.
Right.
Yes, Milty.
You were talking before about you as the principal, someone asked you to write a letter of recommendation.
Right.
So you hedged out of it. Okay, but what happens if the person is applying to a school someplace in another out of town?
Okay.
And that principal calls you and asks you about that is a tougher situation. Then what do you say?
All right, so you have to be honest. You have to be honest. You have to say that this teacher is very knowledgeable and is a good person, basically, but there are issues about classroom control. You have to be honest. You have to be, otherwise, first of all, if you're not honest, that principal is never going to call you again for a recommendation, and it'll ruin your reputation as not being an honest person. So if there is information that can negatively impact other people, if you don't reveal it, then it's not in the category of lashon hara. Whether it's medical information, whether it's teaching ability, whatever the situation might be. And these are issues that the poskim grapple with. If a guy is going into a business with somebody, and you know that this person is dishonest, you have to let the other person know that, be very, very careful, because this guy has a bad track record. if the person asks the rabbi or whoever it might be. Again, what's fascinating, I get to your question in a moment, what's fascinating is very often all of these halachos about revealing information that could be harmful, is some post can put it in the category of hashavas aveda, of like returning a lost object, because you're restoring something to where it should be. In other words, by withholding information, you're causing something to be lost. By being honest about it, it's like hashavas aveda. I mean, it's a whole limud about that. But clearly, in terms of shatchanos, in terms of business deals, you do have to reveal information that otherwise could be harmful. You have situations, again, if a doctor knows that a certain patient is losing his eyesight, and the guy's still driving, you got to let the motor vehicle bureau know, because that could cause serious problems. Just like the guy who has seizures, all these type of things. Doctors have a tremendous responsibility in that regard. Again, you can't share information just stam, because that is inappropriate, it's against halacha. But if information that you have is potentially harmful, if it is not revealed, that's the caveat. Whether it's a doctor, whether attorney-client privilege, for example, that's a trickier situation. If an attorney knows information about a client that he's technically, legally, he's not allowed to reveal that information. But if the person is going to commit a crime and the lawyer knows it, I don't think he would be disbarred if he revealed that information. But a shaila has to be asked. It's a very slippery slope. If the information that you have is potentially harmful, if you don't reveal it, then it doesn't fall into the category of lashon hara or revealing a confidence. It's the same thing. If I'll give you a very clear halakhic example. If I see somebody running after another person with a gun about to shoot him, or a knife about to stab him, I'm allowed to kill that person. So I'm allowed to do that. Because, so this might be in that same category. Again, if there is, you have to ask a shaila. But 9 times out of 10, if that information is going to be harmful to somebody else, then it's not, the Chavetz Chaim would agree that it's not in the category of lashon hara, and you have to reveal it. Whether it's a physician. Now again, physicians are very, very leery about revealing certain information because they don't want to be sued. But there are situations where you really have to overcome that hesitation if the information about the individual could be potentially harmful to other individuals, whether it's an infectious disease, whether it's a psychological issue, whatever the case may be. And these are very, very slippery slopes. If you have information about an individual that might have a criminal background or might have psychological issues or medical issues that could impact a third party, whether it's a shatchanos issue, whether it's a person in a classroom. I mean, we've had situations in Bergen County, for example, where teachers, even principals, lost their jobs because of certain issues that they were accused of having members of the opposite sex. We had that. It happens. It happens. People are only human. It happens. Now, who revealed the information is not as important as the fact that people were afraid that if they didn't reveal the information, more problems would occur. So people, they stepped forward and they said, this person is inappropriate to be a teacher or a principal because, now, were they accusations or were they actually proven? That's for the judges to determine. But if you have information that could be potentially harmful, if not revealed, then it's no longer in the category of lo selech rochim, a tailbearing. Yeah.
Someone's new in town and they ask you a question about a particular store, what you think of it. what can you say? And you personally feel like every time you went into the store, you didn't get, it wasn't good. Whatever you bought wasn't good. What can you say to this person? And what can you not say to this person?
I think if that person is going to have a seriously negative experience in that store, either because of inferior products or inferior service, I don't think it would be in the category of lashon hara to reveal it. But it depends how you say it.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it depends how you say it. You can simply say, I don't go to that store anymore.
In my opinion, or it's not my taste.
Or in my
Yeah.
opinion.
This hasn't happened to me, I can't tell you what.
And you just say, I no longer shop in that store.
And, okay, why?
And without going into details.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
There's quite a few cases where rabbis had inappropriate relations, and the yeshivas covered it up.
Yeah. Okay. Look, unfortunately, you're right. Unfortunately, there have been situations. We don't have to go further than the situation with the Baruch Lanner. It was covered up. Everybody knew it for years and years and years, and nobody said anything. The kids all knew it. Some rabbis knew it. It was wrong. It was wrong. It was, and there are situations like that. There have been rabbis who have had to run away to Israel to try to avoid prosecution. There have been situations where it's been covered up. And it's not only these type of issues. I remember there was a nursing home scandal many years ago involving some frum nursing home operators. One particular rabbi in particular was did terrible things in terms of scamming millions of dollars from Medicare and running very poor nursing homes. And the guy was charged and he was found guilty and the whole business. In the middle of the trial, I was at a hotel for a conference and there was a bar mitzvah at the hotel at the same time. And this rabbi was one of the guests. And they gave him all kinds of kibbudim. He had shishi, and then they welcomed him. The guy was a convicted felon. So I can't explain it. I can't justify it. There are people, every so often, the justice system catches up with them. There was a woman from Australia who ran a girls' school who was accused of inappropriate behavior, and she ran away to Israel. Finally, she was put on trial and found guilty. There was this rabbi who ran a compound where he kidnapped boys to indoctrinate them in his particular type of Hasidism. And there's a lot of scandals going on. Unfortunately, people think they're doing the right thing by covering it up. I don't want to see Jews thrown into jail, but if people, a mensch is not a mensch. People are human, despite the length of their payas or their beards. And sometimes people make terrible mistakes. And they have to be held accountable, because if you don't hold them accountable, then somebody else is going to be hurt. And again, the key, according to the Chafetz Chaim, who's very makpid about saying anything bad about anybody else, but if the information is going to be withheld and it's going to harm other people, then you're duty bound to reveal that information. Whether you're a physician, now, attorneys are a little bit trickier, because attorneys can get sued for revealing certain information, and you have to be very careful in how you reveal that information, maybe through a third party or somehow. It's a slippery slope. But clearly, if you have information that is potentially harmful to other people, whether it's for a shidduch, whether it's for a job interview, unfortunately, the halacha would require you to avoid causing damage or hurting other people, and you have to reveal that information. Yeah.
What you have to be very careful is, let's say you know information. Now, how do you know it? Because you heard it from somebody. So you have to be very careful that wherever you heard it from, it's really true.
Yes.
And if somebody asks you later on, a year later, what do you know about Mr. X?
Right.
Then you say, well, you have to think. You heard about Mr. X from somebody about a year
No,
ago.
clear-
Where did he get that information?
There's no question. Clearly,
That is very, very dangerous.
clearly the information has to be validated, obviously. You can't, because otherwise you're guilty of spreading rumors and you're violating Lo Selech Rochel, which is a biblical commandment. So, but if you have firsthand information,
You witness it yourself.
either you know it yourself, correct.
Oh, if you witness, that's a different story. But if you heard it from somebody else who said.
No, but you have
don't know
to,
who you're-
you have to check out the information to make sure that it's true, because you're dealing with people's lives. So you can't smear a person without knowing the facts, but you have to check it out. Yeah.
If you're at a medical facility, whatever, facility, you see somebody you know, just stay to yourself, or can you walk over and just say hello, acknowledge them?
It's an interesting question. If you're in a hospital, you pass by a room and you see somebody that you know, there's nothing wrong with going in and saying, how are you? Have a refuah shalema, without asking why you're here. Maybe he doesn't want you to know why he's there. But again, whether you're a rabbi, whether you're just a person who's visiting, then you don't go home and say, by the way, I saw so-and-so in the hospital. Are you aware? That would be inappropriate. But if you, I can tell you one anecdote, which is fascinating. When my late father-in-law was in the hospital, so Rabbi Yudin went to visit him. And he finished his visit, and then he goes over to the guy in the next bed. How are you? How are you feeling? He didn't know the guy. The guy wasn't even Jewish. And he said, Rabbi, I'm not Jewish. So what? Now, he's never, now, does he know the guy? Doesn't. You never know the impact of a good word. And by the same token, you have to be conscious of the fact that you're not supposed to share information that other people don't have any business knowing about. I'll tell you a fascinating story about hospital, a fascinating story. Sid Goldschmidt was in a hospital for one of his conditions. And the guy in the next, this is in Florida, and the guy in the next bed was a black man, big guy, who was in terrible pain, screaming and cursing and carrying on like he wouldn't, and it made Sid very uncomfortable. There was a young man in the hospital who was a doctor, a newly minted doctor who went to Florida to make his millions for the elderly people there. And from guy, and he sees a guy with a yarmulke, because he goes in to say, hello, how are you? How you feeling? Just have to pass by the room. And they were talking. Where are you from? Originally, the guy was from West Orange. Oh, I'm from Fairlawn. Fairlawn. You know Rabbi Yudin? So then Sid said, of course, he's my rabbi. The guy in the next bed, who was yelling and screaming and cursing, black guy, says, you know Rabbi Yudin? Don't ask me how or where. And the guy starts, all of a sudden, his behavior changed. And he starts talking and praising Rabbi Yudin. He's this, he's this, he's that. Such a, on and on and on and on. He couldn't stop talking about how the connection was made. I have no idea. Sid has no. But you never know how far a good word can go. What the connection was between Rabbi Yudin and this guy, I have no idea. Sid has no idea. But you never know. So on the one hand, it's important to be makabel kol adam b'sever panim yafos. You have to greet everybody properly and be friendly, but by the same token, there are certain confidences that you have to keep to yourself. If you see somebody in the hospital, there's nothing wrong unless you think that person is super sensitive. If they may not want you to know they're in the hospital. So you may not go into the room and say, how are you? Have refuah shalema. But that you have to know who you're dealing with.
But if you walk by somebody and you don't say hello to them, and they
Okay.
you know them, and they know you, that's worse.
When you're dealing with personalities, it's always a slippery slope. And there's no black and white answer. If somebody's in the hospital, he may welcome somebody coming in and saying hello because he's not getting many visitors. On the other hand, the reason why that person is in the hospital, he may not want people to know about. Now, you don't know. So what do? There's no black and white answer for that.
I think we should do is say hello to him.
Yeah, you go and say hello.
But do not tell anybody else.
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure. You never tell anybody else what you saw, because that's between you and that person. And especially if that person is a very sensitive person. So in the area of interpersonal relationships, it's a very slippery slope. And that's why Rabbi Waldenberg, when he was the chief rabbi at in a hospital in Israel, he wrote 12 volumes of Shelot Utshuvot that dealt with medical issues. And many of them dealt with these type of things. What do you share? What don't you share? Under what circumstances? Again, the case of a guy who has epilepsy. Should he let the Motor Vehicle Bureau know that his patient has epilepsy and his license should be taken away? Or the guy whose vision is gone, is still driving. That's if he doesn't tell the Motor Vehicle Bureau about the results of his eye examination, that guy could cause an accident and hurt somebody or kill somebody or kill himself. So, but again, whenever you have these issues and it's not black and white, you ask a Rav. And if the Rav is not sure, he'll ask his Rav until you get a psak. And there are many, many situations like that. And it happens all the time, especially today in Shadchanus. If you're not honest and you're asked about a potential bride or groom for another person, and you don't give the honest information, that could wind up with terrible situations down the road. And we've seen this happen many, many times. You know that this guy is not balanced and he has a history of medical issues or psychological issues. And somebody asks you about it. Oh, the guy's a good learner. He comes from a good family. The fact that he's crazy, you don't want to talk about that. And then a day after the wedding, the bride runs home to her mother and say, the guy's nuts. I can't live with him. Why didn't somebody tell us when we asked? Because the whole shidduch says, so you do your inquiry. And there's a whole, shidduch resume business and then phone calls and references. But sometimes people are dishonest and they're not serving the chassan or the kala's best interest when they do that. So it's not lashon hara to tell the truth if it could potentially harm somebody else if you don't tell it. Yeah.
Take that person to a din Torah, if you have evidence that the person did not tell the truth, and you got yourself into a real bad position now.
That's a great question. That's a great question.
Repeat the question, please.
The question is, can you take, if a person asks about a potential chassan or kala and doesn't tell the truth, and then there's a problem later on, can you sue that person, take him to a din Torah?
And you know for a fact that he lied.
And you know for a fact this person lied. Can you take him to a din Torah? It's a great question. One that I'm not prepared to answer. It's a great question, and you'd have to ask a Shiloh. Yeah, you could take it. You have to be able to prove that there was malice involved. You have to prove what are there witnesses to what he said. It's not a simple issue, but unfortunately, this happens too often, and a lot of lives get ruined.
The Satmar ladies, they call them.
Yes.
Learn Spanish so that they can speak to.
Oh, the Satmar Bikkur Cholim ladies are fantastic. They go around the hospitals of New York. They do the best job in the world. They bring food.
Yeah, but I'm saying they don't ignore the patients.
No, that's fine.
They actually learn Spanish so that they can speak to them even if they don't speak English.
And I guarantee that the Satmar Bikkur Cholim ladies are not going to be talking to the friends of the guy in the hospital speaking Spanish to tell them that he's there. I don't think that'll be a problem. Okay, anything else? All right, we should all be healthy and not need any kind of medical issues to be dealt with or talked about. Have a great day.
Good.
Thank you, Rabbi. Great class. Thank you.
Take care, Wally.
Take care.
So long, Yanis. Bye-bye. Hi, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Howie, are you coming to the graduation for your 60th anniversary?
I can't get up. I can't be there.
Oh, I thought you're a retired man now.
Not yet. Not yet in June.
All right, we'll think about you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care, Yeshua.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. You too. Good to see you.
Okay. Rabbi Seinevarech. Yishen Avarach Me'atov Yad Olam. B'shus Kol B'subin Kan. V'rei Shachal Mishalo. Rosh Chal Mishlo. Tvo Chayinu. B'rochaton Echlo Mazon Esur. Lo Kulom. Tufim Yezrach. Hunos Ilechem. Chol Tzakir. Chasto. Uf Tuvo HaGadol. Tomid Lom Chavar. Ki hu elzon von Esla Kol Mitiv La Kol Michim Mazon Kol B'Yosov Asher Baro. B'rochato Adonai Hazon Es HaKol. Baruch atah Adonai al haaretz v'al hamazon. Uvenei Yerushalayim ir hakodesh meira v'yameinu. Baruch atah Adonai b'nei berachamav Yerushalayim. Amen. Mikol tov v'yalamay chasreinu.
Today, I did it when I came home.